Well, thank you, Crystal. I'm going to go back and forth between using the mic and not using the mic. Can you hear me, Eric? Loud and clear?
Perfect.
Okay, so those of you that have your back to me, go ahead and just turn your whole chair. You don't want to be stuck looking like this the whole time. In our brief time here together this evening, I'm going to make sure that you leave with 3 takeaways, and I'll wait a little bit before we identify what they are, but we'll make sure you do take them away. When I think of being an engineer, I think of a stool. And this is something that I really learned from Bart in a speech he gave years ago. And maybe you talked about this in your engineering classes, but the stool has 3 legs, and if you cut off any one of the legs, the stool tips over. And to me, the 3 legs of engineering are being a technical person, being a creative, designing person, and being a professional person. Now, being a technical person is what happens when you graduate with an engineering degree. It's assumed. You're taking all of these mathematics and science classes, engineering classes, you're acquiring a vast storehouse of knowledge. In fact, when I graduated from the University of North Dakota almost 30 years ago, it was the only leg that our stool had. We didn't have any design classes, didn't learn about creativity, and never once took a class in professionalism. And I found it to be a very big struggle when I got out into engineering practice and had to acquire those other 2 legs very quickly. So about 15 years ago, we started the engineering design program at Itasca, the EPD program. It started out as professionalism, and then it became engineering design and professionalism, and it's grown. But it's really the reason that we're here tonight, is to practice some aspect of professionalism. Well, the next leg of the chair, of the stool, is that of being a creative person. And that could be a whole other night that we could spend together about creativity and design. It's very interesting. To be a good creative person requires a completely different skill set than to be a logical, convergent thinker like we learn how to do in statics and dynamics and circuits and chemistry and physics. And so there's this divergent thinking we need to pick up. But our design projects are really meant to get us started on that pathway. Tonight, though, I'm going to focus on that one leg of professionalism. So the topic of our time together here is professionalism. And I'm going to do a quick survey. I want everybody to raise their hand if their goal in their engineering career is to get fired. No. To be the first person laid off when your company has cutbacks. No. Okay. Well, then I'm in the right place. If I look at all of the students I've ever taught who became engineers, and a little later on we'll do a little math and figure out what that number is. Some of them have been fired. Many of them have been the first person laid off when their company had cutbacks. And the reason for 99% of those actions was a lack of professional execution, a lack of being a professional, a lack of acting professionally. And so what I'm going to talk about tonight is to come up with a definition of professionalism. What does that mean? If you were in an interview for a co-op or an internship and you were asked to define professionalism, I'm interested to see what exactly you would come up with for a definition. I'm going to give you my definition, and then we're going to break that down into some categories. So, really, it's time to get started. So I need some help from some of my peers. We need each student to get an index card and each student to get a pencil. Not just the students, even the old people like Jamie. Because you are like the oldest of us, aren't you, Jamie? Now we're going to end up using both sides of that card. And so we're only going to use the one side first. And once you have your pencil, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I want you to write down, what does professionalism mean to you? How would you describe professionalism? What is professionalism? So you've got a pencil, you've got a card. Using one side of the card, write down your description of what professionalism is. Pencils yet?
I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
So your assignment is to describe professionalism. You can use sentences, you can use phrases, you can use words, you can draw a picture if you want. But on one side of your paper, I'd like you to describe professionalism. So as you wrap up your description, I'm just going to have you read it around your table. So each person at the table reads what they wrote until you've made it all the way around the table. Ready, set, go.
The use of the proper actions or words
showing clear judgment, there is also respect. I put the professionalism knowing your situation and appropriate entire frame action professional changes based on the scenario. So you need to know your setting and what it means
It says special me is being able to make absolute decisions during every aspect of your job. Those decisions that I think would be appropriate, addressed, respectful, towards peers, and
and I got the knowledge, skills, and ability to work as an individual in a team environment, to be an outcome environmentally sustainable.
I do have that. So, listening, communicating, behaving in a respectful manner represents your institution, wherever that may be.
So anything that we'd add here is all down around the circle.
a non-personal relationship
Yeah, I like that.
being in a manner that shows that you know what you get.
Conduct in oneself in a manner that is appropriate and mutual and pure and not satisfactory.
Because I mean, society expects that.
I have the third one. Allow
Anything else you can add to their definition?
Because the key is more to get professional. Right now, it's one of the maybe
For a video.
So how do you know when you see good professional?
All right, excellent. Okay, now what I want to do is I want you to condense into just single words. So I want to hear some of the single words. I'm going to point at a table or I'll point at a person, and I'm going to translate all of everything that you have onto this one piece of paper up here on the easel. So give me a word. Respect. Respect. Give me another word right here.
Appropriate.
Appropriate. Give me another word right here.
Accountable.
Accountable. All right, this table right here, right over there, that guy right there, yes. Communicate. All right, next table. Anybody?
Reliable.
Reliable. Okay, next table.
Proper.
Proper. Okay, and back table.
Organized.
Organized. And back table.
Ethical.
Ethical. Okay, keep them coming, keep them coming. Another one from this table. Anything on your cards that's not on the board? Got them all?
Knowledgeable.
Pardon?
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable. Table.
Humility.
Humility. Hear that one, Weir?
I hear it.
Table. Personable. Okay. This table right here.
Punctual.
Pardon?
Punctual?
Punctual. I like that. And this table again. Confident. Back table.
Integrity.
No, you already got to say one, Jamie. I want to hear from somebody else at your table.
Integrity.
All right.
Be very decide on the next word you're going to go.
Next table.
Situational.
What on earth does that mean? Situational. Give it to me, Eric. I want to need a definition. Pardon?
We're in a situation now that's different than in class.
So adapting to whatever the situation is as the situations differ. Another one from this table.
Polite.
Polite. Okay, anybody else have anything you want to add to the list?
Considerate.
Considerate.
Mature.
Mature.
Responsible.
Responsible. Any others?
Passionate.
Passionate. Decisive. Uh-oh, now we're getting into words I don't know how to spell. Any others?
Etiquette.
Etiquette. Wow. Whoever would have thought of that one? Well, I made a similar list, and I'll explain in a minute what. Whoa. Got to figure out whether I'm going to yell or not. And why I broke it up like this. I teach a class called Professionalism, and we put some other things up here with communication. We have project management. And self-directed learning. Down here, another one that I would have is responsive. We have a lot of R words. We've got respect, we've got responsible, but I have something I believe that if someone sends me an email, I should return it within 24 hours. That's kind of like being responsive. You with me on that? Okay, and I have one more that I'm going to add here. Happy. So let me tell you about my breakdowns. I call this category the mechanics of being a professional. Things that you could sign up and go to a workshop on how to be a better writer or a better speaker or to be a better project manager, to be more organized, to become a self-directed learner. Those are things that I think you could go and learn about in a day or in a weekend. These ones down here, it's funny someone said the word responsible. I call these the professional responsibilities. These are actions. These are being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. It's returning phone calls, returning emails, being confident, being reliable. I call these, like I said, the professional responsibilities. And today I'm really not going to talk about either of these two categories. I'm going to talk about the third one. And I call these attributes. Now, one of the things that's probably harder than any other part of being an engineer and working on a project is being a part of a team. Have you struggled with that at all? Being a member of a team? So have I. A lot of teams really struggle. But if the people on the team, if every single person on the team really focused on building these attributes in themselves, well, geez, then aren't these the people you'd want to be around? There's a really good country song right now by Tim McGraw. What does he say? Be humble and kind. Be humble and kind. Kindness, humility, being personable, being polite, being happy, being considerate, being passionate and respectable and accountable. I want you to think of that person from your high school class who everybody liked. Who everybody liked. He was either the homecoming king or she was the homecoming queen. In my class, it was Teresa Fulton. There wasn't a person I've ever met that doesn't like Teresa Fulton. Can you think of that person in your high school class? Would you want her or him to be on your team? Think of that person in your ICC engineering program. Can you think of some people who are just nice people? They're always willing to help others. They're polite. They never swear. They never yell at people. They never take out their frustrations on those people around them. These are the attributes of a consummate professional. Some of you came to a workshop or a seminar that I did, I think it was a seminar, not that long ago on social capital, on building social capital. And for those of you that weren't there, the quick version is that if you build up a lot of goodwill with people, then they tend to cut you some slack on that one time when you're late for class, or that one time when you couldn't meet an obligation. And when you build up a lot of goodwill with people, a lot of social capital, they often look to you to guide them, to be their leader. Next week, I'm teaching a seminar on inclusivity. Anybody know what inclusivity is? Being inclusive. Ha-ha! Fantastic. Inclusivity, or being inclusive, is when you welcome every single member into your community. It's a welcoming environment. Nobody feels like they don't belong. Well, what kind of actions does it take to make people wanted and welcome and feeling like they belong? Well, it's the same kind of actions that it takes to build social capital. It's the same kind of actions that we're talking about right here. So, in the 1990s, psychology made some leaps and bounds. And your teachers in the room and I and Aaron, we've been having conversations about those leaps and bounds for the last 10 years. And they're leaps and bounds in understanding how people learn. It's why your classroom experiences are what they are. We now know more about how people learn than we did when I was in college or when Aaron was in college. But unbeknownst to me, until like last week, psychology was making other leaps and bounds in another area. And that area is in happiness. It's called positive psychology. How many of you think happiness is something that you'll get to after you suffer through college? That happiness is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's not. Happiness is how we live our life today. Because if we try and set it aside until we achieve that goal, guess what happens when we achieve that goal? We set another one further away. We'll get happy when we get there. I watched a TED Talk just yesterday. This guy went to Harvard. And they showed the freshman dining hall at Harvard. And it looks exactly like Hogwarts. The dining hall at Hogwarts. And he said, can you imagine how grateful all of the Harvard freshmen are to be here and be a part of this? They're not. They're not happy at all. They might have been happy when they got the acceptance letter, but then they became stressed. Now they have to get good grades, get better grades, so they can get to a better graduate school. They push happiness out into the horizon. Well, that's not what happiness is. Guess what the psychology of happiness says happiness is? Happiness is being in the present. Happiness is when we treat other people well. We get more happiness from how we act to somebody else than how they act to us. So this formula for happiness looks like being humble, being personable, being kind, being polite, being considerate. That's how we become happy. How many of you signed up to go to college because you wanted to be unhappy? So there's this whole thread of these attributes that build social capital. They build inclusivity. They build happiness. And have you guys studied ethics at all? About acting ethically and being an ethical person? Well, holy crap! It's the same sort of things, right? An ethical person has integrity, is humble, is accountable, is respectable, and considerate. Okay, so I said we were going to leave here with three takeaways. We got two done. My first one was an ability to describe professionalism. Could you take professionalism now and maybe put it into some different categories and talk about what those different categories are? My second takeaway was really to focus in on these attributes of what it means to be a professional. These are actions. This is easy. Even a dumbass jerk can show up on time and answer your emails. These are things that you could program into a computer. They're important. But they're easier than these. So now we're going to talk about the third thing, and that's change. Change is hard. But change is what we do as engineers. In engineering, we don't call it change, we call it continuous improvement. The iPhone 6 6 whatever is out now. I'm sure glad they changed, because it's a whole lot better than that first iPhone that I had. And my iPhone 3GS was better than, and my iPhone 4 was better than my 3GS, and my 5S was, right? They've changed. We call it continuous improvement. Now we need to think about continuous improvement for ourselves. Continuous improvement for ourselves as professionals. Basically, what happens when you leave Itasca Community College is your teachers take the responsibility of becoming a professional and they set it on your shoulders. Because in 9 out of 10 places that you would go after ICC, they'll never talk about professionalism again. And unless you want to stay at the same level of professionalism that you're at when you're 18 or 19 or 20, you're going to have to take and put on your own shoulders this responsibility of becoming more professional, becoming a better professional. I've heard lots of times from my former students, in fact, I'll just tell you the story. Last Friday, there was a guy named John Altman. Anybody know John Altman? A couple of you. John Altman was speaking at my college. And someone said, John, and he'd been talking about some professionalism stuff, where did you learn that professionalism, the stuff you're talking about? And he said, well, I'll be honest with you. Everything I learned in EPD. Because when I got to the University of North Dakota, we never talked about it again. And so I had to learn it all on my own after that. And so that's why we got EPD started, is so we could kind of light a flame, get the ball rolling so that you can take it over. Take these ideas that you're learning. I saw a real cool poster in Wenger Hall yesterday of some professionalism attributes, some professional expectations. We're going to put them on your shoulders. Okay, so now, how do you take that ownership and go and do something with it? I've got an answer. You make goals. In fact, if you don't make goals, you hardly ever get anywhere. If you wanted to go on a trip, and you hoped to see a beach, your goal might be to go to the coast. If that wasn't your goal, do you think you'd ever end up there? You could just drive all around. You drive around America lots of times and never get to the coast. But if your goal is to get to the beach, you might have a chance of getting there. After setting goals, we make plans for how to achieve the goals. I call them action plans. An action plan is the list of steps that allow you to achieve your goal. If you want to take this ownership and go out and be the successful person you want to be, and never get fired, and never be the first one let go, then you're going to need to set goals on a regular basis and have plans for achieving those goals. Want to go to the beach? Here's your action plan. Go to delta.com, buy an airplane ticket to Fort Myers Beach. Then get on the plane. Fly into Fort Myers, rent a car, drive to the beach. There, that's not a long action plan, but it's going to get you where you want to go if that was your goal. Flip your card over. I want you to write 2 goals. We've got and these goals are about professionalism, not going to the beach. These goals are about professionalism. How would you like to change as a professional? What would you like to improve in yourself? I turned 50 years old in a month. I still have lots of goals that I have for improving myself as a professional. So when you're 20, you should have some too. 2 goals. as you get your 2 goals written, now choose one to read around the table, go the other direction, and feel free to steal somebody's goal. When you hear something really good, go ahead and write it on your list so you can take it with you tonight.
I think more happiness in the present rather than after graduate college.
Said be more reliable. Get work done thoroughly.
So I'd like to become the person that has those attributes. Legacy.
My social capability is provided more.
I want to be the best person for me. I feel like I'm being more patient to my classes.
I would like to be more responsive, more
I just need to be more present in a lot of things.
And I put down communication.
Yeah.
Have you made it around the table? I want to hear a good goal that you heard from somebody else. Ed, what was a good goal that you heard from around your table?
To listen to other people better.
To listen to other people better. I like it. Cole?
Smile more.
Smile more. This whole freaking room could use that one. I feel like the Dementors are sucking the soul out of me. It's too quiet. Not enough smiles. Crystal, what did you hear?
I heard be more passionate.
Being more passionate. Excellent. Eric, what did you hear?
Handle stress.
Handle stress. That's an excellent goal. There's some good books on that. Jamie, what did you hear?
I heard time management.
Manage my time better. I like it. D. Fox, what did you hear?
Be more accountable to my coursework by being on time with my assignments and attendance of class.
Excellent. That's a very difficult one early in college. Aaron Wenger, what did you hear?
I'm going to defer to Jeremy.
Jeremy, what did you hear?
I heard that I'd like to become happy.
Like to become happy. I got to tell you, there are some excellent videos on happiness on YouTube. I've been watching them for 2 weeks. This week at IRE is Happiness Week. It's a big deal, people. Emma Seppala, if you want to become more happy, I'm listening to her book right now. If you want to become more happy, find the YouTube videos by Emma Seppala. Bart, what did you hear?
Being present.
Being present. I love that. I love that. In fact, one of my parting thoughts is going to be on that, being present. Okay, so I said we do a little bit of math, and the math is I started teaching with my very good friend here, Aaron Wenger, in 1992. How many years ago was that? You guys need to take out your iPhone and ask Siri. It's 24! Ballpark, we've averaged graduating across those 24 years about 35 engineers. Roughly 35 engineers per year for 24 years. Do the math, it's somewhere between 600 and 800. So myself, I have taught ballpark 700 people who have become engineers. I'm friends with most of them on Facebook. I know most of them. So does Aaron. In that 24 years, I can look around and I can look at those people who did get fired, who were the first ones laid off at their companies, who aren't happy in their careers. And they all have about one thing in common. And that one thing in common is they didn't take that ownership to be their own agent of change, to set those goals and work hard to improve. All right, before I give my last bit of advice, does anybody have a question you'd like to ask? No? No questions?
Ron, I have a question.
Crystal! has a question. Crystal, by the way, is one of my favorite students of all time.
And best free throw shooter.
The best
Yeah.
free throw shooter.
But I'm very humble. So
I see that.
I notice that you're happy very frequently. Every time I see you, you're smiling. You have a very good outlook on life. How do you approach happiness?
How do I approach happiness? Well, a week ago, I would have told you I'm an extremely happy person. And then I learned what happiness was. I've got some work to do. So first thing is, don't read books on happiness. No, that's a joke. I've got a couple of answers for you, Crystal.
Okay.
One is something that I call compartmentalization. Compartmentalizing is when you take the different stressful parts of your life and you kind of put them in a box and you leave them in different parts of your life so that the stressful parts of your life aren't always choking you. Being a teacher is a stressful thing. Not as stressful as being a student. Being a student is a stressful thing. Bart and I just spent 3 years as students. Being in charge of people and being responsible for people is stressful. Being a part of a family is stressful. But if you put the boxes aside, when I ride my bike home, you've all seen me. I'm the goofy guy that wears the helmet, looks like a video cam, but it's really a headlight, walking around Wenger Hall. I ride my bike home, and as I ride my bike home and the miles start to accumulate, all the stresses of the day get put in boxes so that when I get home, I can be present in my family's life. And when I'm unhappy, it's because I didn't leave the boxes behind. When I'm happy, it's because I did. That's one answer. The other answer is, I feel a responsibility to spread happiness. I like to smile at people. I like to say good morning, happy Thursday, because that spreads. I smile to somebody, I see somebody walking down the hall in the college and they've got a frown on, and I say, good morning, happy Thursday, and they smile, and then the smile lasts a while. And then they go into the next room and they still got that smile on, and now somebody else smiles. So I feel responsibility, and sometimes I'm faking it, but you fake it till you make it, and all of a sudden you smile at a bunch of people and say good morning to them. Well, you're kind of happy yourself. Good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well then here's how I want to wrap this up. Be present. Who I heard it said over here, this guy right here. What's your name?
Kevin?
Kevin? There are lots of different ways of being present. There's being present physically, where people expect you to be. But there's another being present, and I just touched on it a little bit. It's being present with those people around you. This is a challenge. It's more of a challenge today than it was 5 years ago. And there's one reason, and it's that darn smartphone. How can you be present with the people around you when you're looking at your phone? You can't. So I've changed in my life. When I get home now, I leave my phone and I go spend time with my wife rather than spending time with my wife and looking at my phone. When I go to a meeting with my peers at the college, I leave my phone on my desk because I owe it to them to be present. When I meet with students, used to be I'd go into class and I like to make the students do all the work, just like I made you guys talk to each other and that. But while they're doing that, I take out my phone. I don't do that anymore. If you go back to the previous page here, it's hard to be a lot of these things if you're only half engaged with the people around you. So my goal that I'm working on, I share with you and I challenge you to the same goal. Be present. And it's not just the phone. It's also the attention. Have you ever been talking to somebody and all of a sudden they're looking up at the clock or they're and you know that they're only half listening to you, that's not being present. So, that's all I have. Go do it. Go do your action plan. Take the ownership of professionalism and go and become the engineer that you want to be. And for the rest of this night, smile. Thank you. I'm over here.